Your testimony to this committee under oath is that everybody that ICE has picked up in this country has been given every opportunity as it Section 5 under the Constitution provides.
Correct. I believe everybody has gotten due process and every person has been treated appropriately according to the civil or the criminal action to which they were encountering individuals and brought into our detainment and then also removed from this country.
So your answer is yes.
The tools that you have given us as this
I'm
body
talking about
for
the
due process
Constitution of the
have been
United
implemented.
States. I'm not talking about tools. The Constitution is clear.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Department of Homeland Security has been the top target on the Donald Trump's revenge tour, and you, Madam Secretary, are the chief accomplice. The Trump administration is hell-bent on destroying the Department of Homeland Security, built through bipartisan collaboration over the past 2 decades and evading any accountability for its actions. Let's start with what the administration is doing to FEMA. Madam Secretary, you said that you want to get rid of FEMA, and the administration plan is to shirk its disaster response obligation and leave state and local governments to fend for themselves. Emergency managers across the country are sounding the alarm about the limited ability to respond when disasters strike, but their calls are falling on deaf ears from the White House. What is the administration's plan to respond to catastrophic disasters beyond shifting responsibilities to states and local communities who are already telling you they don't have the ability to respond?
Well, Congressman, President Trump has been very clear that he believes that FEMA should be eliminated as it exists today. He believes there's dramatic reforms that need to happen to the agency in order for it to truly serve people in a time of crisis. He wants to empower states and local governments to respond to their people. The federal government would be there for resources, support, much like block grants, but that we need to empower those locally to respond to their people because they know what they need. That is something that every state is at a different position today to respond, but he wants to give them the opportunity to build up the infrastructure to respond to their emergency.
Madam Secretary, do you have this plan in writing?
The White House is coming forward with the participation of the FEMA Review Council, which we have members from many states that are sitting on that will be making recommendations.
So what you're doing now, there's nothing in writing as a guidepost.
Well, sir, you certainly know that there are reform bills here in the House side and in the Senate side of how to address the failures of FEMA from the past.
No, but you're the
Those will be
secretary.
considered with the FEMA
you're
Review
the secretary.
Council recommendations.
No, you're the secretary, and you say you're doing all these things, and I'm just asking you, do you have a written plan for what you're doing?
There is no formalized final plan for how this goes forward because the input of Congress is critically important. As you know, there are statutory requirements of the agency.
Well, I'm glad you recognize, Madam Secretary, I'm glad you recognize the statutory requirements. Washington State, Mississippi, and a couple other states already have requests in to you or to the president for disaster declaration, and it's taken an inordinate amount of time, more than normal. I just want to know, is that inordinate amount of time is based on some plan that you have knowledge of? But if it's not in writing, I understand. So you talked about the rule of law. Are you telling the committee that due process for anybody that's picked up in this country should not be followed?
Congressman, we have utilized due process as it is laid out in the tools that Congress has given us. We have followed the tools and the processes to which Congress has given us to give due process to people appropriately as it is due.
So your testimony to this committee under oath is that everybody that ICE has picked up in this country has been given every opportunity as it Section 5 under the Constitution provides.
Correct. I believe everybody has gotten due process, and every person has been treated appropriately according to the civil or the criminal action to which they were encountering individuals and brought into our detainment and then also removed from this country.
So your answer is yes.
The tools that you have given us as this
I'm
body
talking about
for
the
due process
Constitution
have
of the
been
United
implemented.
States. I'm not talking about tools. The Constitution is clear.
Correct.
And your testimony under oath to this committee is that everybody that ICE has picked up and any other agency of DHS has conformed to those statutes.
For example, Congressman,
No, yes or no? No, I don't need an example.
Expedited removal is one of the
Madam
tools
Secretary,
that you have
I
given
got
us to
4
utilize
seconds.
as due process.
I just need a yes or no.
Sir, that is the due process tool that you have given us to utilize that has been appropriately.
So obviously,
Gentleman's time has expired. I know.
I have a unanimous consent request, Chairman.
I'm sorry?
I have a unanimous consent request.
What you just saw from Congressman Bennie Thompson's questioning of Kristi Noem is the kind of moment that defines hearings like this. It wasn't just about one exchange. It was about exposing a pattern of evasion, of deflection, of trying to dodge accountability on the most fundamental issues of government, protecting people in times of disaster, and upholding the Constitution. Let's start with FEMA. Thompson didn't mince words. He laid out what so many emergency managers, governors, and local leaders have been warning about. If FEMA is dismantled, if the federal government shrinks back from its responsibility, millions of Americans will be left vulnerable the next time disaster strikes. And this isn't speculation. Hurricanes don't wait for states to build capacity. Wildfires don't pause while politicians argue about reforms. Floods don't check whether your state has enough funding in its emergency budget. Disasters overwhelm. That's their nature. That's why FEMA was created in the first place. Because when catastrophe hits, no single state, not Mississippi, not Washington, not California, not Florida, can handle it alone. But what did Kristi Noem offer when pressed? Nothing in writing, no concrete plan, no guarantees for how this new system would actually work, just vague assurances about empowering states and block grant-style support. Think about what that means at this very moment, as requests for disaster declarations pile up, as states like Mississippi and Washington wait desperately for help, the administration is operating without a written roadmap. That's not reform. That's reckless improvisation with people's lives on the line. And then Congressman Thompson went to the heart of something even more profound: due process. Now, due process isn't just a legal technicality. It's one of the bedrock principles of American democracy. It's the idea that no matter who you are, no matter your status, you cannot be deprived of your liberty without fair procedures and constitutional protections. It's not about politics, it's about basic justice. So when Thompson asked Noem whether everyone ICE or DHS has picked up is being afforded due process under the Constitution, that was more than a procedural question. It was a test. Will the Secretary of Homeland Security, under oath, commit to upholding the supreme law of the land? And instead of a simple yes, Noem offered a legal maze. She talked about tools Congress gave them, about expedited removal, as if that alone fulfills constitutional obligations. But she wouldn't just say it. Yes, every person has been afforded due process under the Constitution. That hesitation, that refusal, should set off alarms for every American. Because if the government can redefine due process as whatever tools it prefers to use, then what happens to the very idea of constitutional protections? Who decides what rights count and for whom? That's not just a legal issue, that's a moral one. And this is why Thompson's persistence mattered so much. He wasn't letting Noem spin her way out. He was forcing the record to show that the administration doesn't have a written FEMA plan, and it cannot clearly commit to constitutional due process. That's accountability in action. The larger question here is, what does this say about governance under Trump's return? What does it say about the kind of leadership that dismantles institutions without a plan and plays word games with constitutional rights? At some point, this stops being about party lines and starts being about the survival of democratic norms. So the takeaway is clear. Hearings like this aren't just about one witness. They're about whether the government is still bound by the rules that protect people from natural disasters and from abuse of power. Thompson showed what it looks like when a lawmaker takes that responsibility seriously. Now it's on us to think about what kind of leadership we want. Do we want officials who operate without transparency, leaving communities stranded when they need help most, and twisting the meaning of due process to fit their agenda? Or do we want leaders who respect the Constitution, respect the law, and put the people first? That's the choice, and it's not an abstract one. It will determine how America responds the next time a hurricane wipes out a coast or when someone's rights are on the line. What do you think? Should Congress allow FEMA to be gutted without a written plan? Should due process be treated as optional? Or is it the one thing that should never be up for debate? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns that cut past the sound bites and show you what's really at stake.